Hello. So I'm still doing my videos on games that I own but have only played one time. So next in chronological order is Dominant Species. I last played this one 7 years ago, it looks like. Checking my log plays on BGG. And I had a note in there that said I was playing this with two other people, so a 3-player game, and that we didn't finish it. So, I don't know, 7 years ago, I don't remember why we didn't finish it. Maybe it went on too long, we ran out of time. I really don't remember. But since I've only played it one time, I'm guessing that we weren't too thrilled with it. And like I said, I really don't remember much about it. But I'm going to go ahead and do a solo playthrough as 3 players, and I'll do a how to play, and then I'll give a few of my thoughts on it at the end. So right now let's go ahead and go through setup. Alright, well, first thing you do is put the game board, it's kind of a large game board, put that out in the middle of the table. Next, each player decides what animal type they would like to be and chooses their animal and player sheet. So got the amphibians, the birds, and the reptiles for this 3-player game. Then it says in reverse food chain order, players place their square initiative markers here on the initiative spaces. And so I've got reptiles, or amphibians, birds, reptiles, that's reverse food chain order. And the food chain order is shown here in the rule book. So the normal order is mammal, reptile, bird, amphibian, arachnid, and insect. Then next you put one of each 7 terrain type tiles on the board in the spot marked for them. So underneath the tiles here, I've already done it, but it has a spot marked for each type. So mountain, forest, jungle, wetland, savanna, desert, and sea. So you put one of each of those tile types out. And then you place a tundra tile on top of the sea tile. Then you place the remaining tundra tiles up here in the glaciation tile space. Alright, then you shuffle the remaining large terrain type tiles and place them in 3 piles, 3 even piles on these Wanderlust spaces, and then flip over the top tile of each stack. Then you set the survival card off to the side. You remove the Ice Age card from the Dominance deck, and then you shuffle the remaining Dominance cards. Then you place the Ice Age card face down near the board and place the shuffled Dominance cards on top of that card. Then you draw the top 5 cards from the Dominance cards and place them on the available Dominance card spaces on the board. Then you take 2 of each element type, that's these, and place them on the tiles as shown on the board. So you can't really see it, but on the board it shows you where to place each of those elements, so it's 2 of each type. And the types are grass, grub, meat, seed, sun, and water. And you place the remaining elements in this bag. Then you'll draw 4 random elements and put them on these spaces on the adaptation section. Draw 4 more random and put them on the spaces on the abundance section. And 4 more and put them in the 4 spaces on the Wanderlust section. Then each player will take the 10 cones and the appropriate number of cylinders and cubes that they require, and that's dependent on the number of players, as shown here in the rule book. So it's always 10 cones, but for a 3-player game, it takes 6 cylinders and 50 cubes. Then you take one of your gathered cubes, each player takes one, and puts it on the 0 space of the victory point track. Then each player, depending on what type of animal type they've chosen, will take a certain amount of cubes and put them on the terrain type on the board. So, for instance, the reptiles put 2 on the desert, 1 on the savanna, and 1 on the mountain. And so you can see I've done that here for each of the 3 players. And that's it. The board's all set up. All the players are ready to go. And now we're ready to play the game. Alright, so the sequence of play is there's a planning phase, execution phase, and a reset phase. So in the planning phase, the player who's the leftmost on the initiative track, which in this case is going to be the amphibian player, followed by the reptile player, and then the birds player. So starting with the leftmost player, they'll place one of their action pawns, which is one of these, on one of the available actions here, which is where the eyeballs are. So you can put your pawn here, here. Then the next player, which will be, the reptile player, so then he would take one of his pawns maybe and place it here. And then followed by the bird player, so he takes one of his action pawns and places it on one of the available spaces. So, maybe here, and so on until each player has placed all 6 of their, in a 3-player game you have 6 action pawns. So you go in order, initiative order, placing your action, taking turns placing your action pawns. So I'll do that for each of the players, and then we'll come back and go through each available action and what they are. Okay, once each player has placed all their action pawns, you go into the execution phase. So starting with the initiative action, whoever placed their pawn here, they get to move their initiative marker 1 space towards the left, so swapping spaces. So here that was the black players, the reptiles, so he gets to swap with the amphibians, and then he gets to place this marker on any other open space that he wants to. So we'll just say he's going to place, we'll just say here. I don't know. Okay. So then you go to the next action, which is adaptation. So starting with the player who has his action pawn in the leftmost space, gets to take one of these elements and place that on their player mat. So we'll just say the amphibian player wants to take the seed, so he places that on his mat. Now you can never have more than 6. Your mat has a default, like the amphibian starts with a default of 3. The birds start with 2 seed, and the reptiles start with 2 sun. But then you can add more to the gray spaces. And now, the reptile's black is next, so he gets to take one of those, and we'll just say he wants to take a water, and he'll put that on his mat. Now, anytime you change something, like get an extra element, or maybe put a new tile or add an element to the board, you may want to check dominance, and we haven't talked about what dominance is. But these cones that are on these tiles represent the species that currently has dominance of that tile. So how do you have dominance? Well, first of all, you have to have at least one of your species there. So like in this tile, the amphibians have one species there, and the reptiles have one in there. And then what you'll do is add these elements depending on what elements you have on your map. So you start with your leftmost element and add up how many of those are on the tile that you're on. So my leftmost is a water, and there's one water element on this tile, so that gives me one. But then there's another water, so that gives me another one, and another water, that gives me another one, so that gives me three. Then I have a grass, and there's two of those elements on this tile, so that gives me two more, so that's five. And then I have a seed, and there's one seed element on this tile, so that gives me a total of six. Whereas black here, he's got a sun, and there is one sun, so that gives him 1 point. He's got another sun, so that gives him 2 points. Then he's got a meat, but there's no meat there. And then he's got a water, and there's one water, so that gives him a total of 3 points against the amphibian blue's total of 6 points. So blue has dominance there. It doesn't matter how many cubes you have there. It matters. You have to have at least one cube there, and then you add matching elements from your mat to what elements are on the tile, and whoever has the greater amount, then they have dominance there. So you may always want to check dominance because it can change at any time. You know, if you add a new element to your mat, or you've added a new element on a tile, you may want to double check that you don't have dominance, or dominance hasn't changed for that tile, because there's not a certain time you check if dominance changes. Anytime something changes that may have changed somebody's dominance on a map tile, you check it and update who has dominance there. So after those two players did the adaptation and they got elements on their mat, I just verified that dominance hasn't changed, and it has not. Now we come to regression. So for every element in this box, each player, each animal, has to remove one element of that type from their player mat. But if you have one of your action pawns in here, or if you're the reptiles, you get to skip doing that for one element. Now in this case, since I'm only in the second turn of the game, I did the first turn off camera, there's only one element in here. So anybody that has a seed element on their player mat would have to remove it, one of them anyway. But because yellow, the birds, and the reptiles have a default icon here, they don't have to do it. So the reptile, he doesn't have one anyway. The birds have one, but you can never remove the default icons. So if the birds had another seed element out here, normally they would have to remove it because it's here in the regression box, but because they placed a pawn there, they would not have to do it. But the amphibians who just got this seed element, I really should have looked ahead, this was foolish, they now have to remove it because that's what's in the regression box. So that goes back in the bag. Then after all players have done that, their tokens go back to them. Alright, next we come to the abundance. So when the abundance is done, starting with the player with the leftmost action pawn, they get to choose one of these elements and add it to any corner on the map. So, for instance, blue might choose this water element, and because he has some tokens here, it can go on any corner, even one that's not adjoining another tile. So I could put it here, but just for stability's sake, I'm going to put it there. Stability's sake, not stability's sake. But now we should check dominance here, because now it may go to the amphibians. So there's one water element, so that gives me 1, 2, 3. And there's one grass element, which he has 1. So he has a total of 4 there, 4 matching elements. And black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, he's still got way more, so dominance does not change there. Okay, but now blue, the amphibians, have to remove their token there. And now yellow takes one of these elements and adds it to a corner of the map. Now yellow only has seed and meat, so none of these really helps him at this time. So he'll just take a grass and he'll put it over here. So it doesn't really help anybody at this time, but well, let me put it over here. It's a little more. Oh my God, let me fix this. Okay, so yellow put that grass element there, and he removes his pawn. Okay, next we come to Wasteland. So what's going to happen here is any elements that match what's here in the Wasteland box are going to be removed from Tundra tiles. Now, Tundra tiles are these ones with the white that say Tundra on them. So all grubs and all sun will be removed that are adjacent to Tundra tiles. So this sun and this grub would be removed. But because black put a pawn there, he gets to remove one of those tiles before that action is executed. So he's going to remove the sun, because that's what he's got the most of, and that if that was removed from here, that might cause him to lose dominance here. Probably it wouldn't, because there's not currently any other species there, but then it may cause him to lose dominance in this area because that sun tile would be gone. So he would remove this sun, and that just goes back in the bag. But then we do have to remove this grub that's adjacent to a Tundra tile. So that goes back in the bag also. Okay, the next would be Depletion. There's currently no elements in the Depletion box. When we get to the reset phase, that grub will slide down there. And then if a player takes that action here, oh, we forgot to remove his marker. If a player takes that action, then he can choose an element that's in this Depletion box and remove one of them from anywhere on the earth tiles there. Okay, next you have the Glaciation. Now, even though you can have more than one action pawn here, only the leftmost pawn occurs each round. Then at the end, in the reset phase, this yellow one will slide down, and if there was one here, it would slide down. So in the next turn, they would get to do the Glaciation. But in this case, it's the Reptiles black that gets to do the Glaciation action. And so what he does is he can put a Tundra tile on any tile that is next to or adjacent to another Tundra tile. So, for instance, let's say he's going to do this one. So you temporarily remove the species and dominance token that's there and place a Tundra tile. Now, if any element is surrounded by 3 Tundra tiles, it's removed. So if there had been an element here, then it would be removed from the game. then the player that took that action gains victory points based on how many other Tundra tiles are adjacent to it, and you just go by this table. So he placed this one, so it had 2 other Tundra tiles adjacent to it. So 2 tiles gives him 3 victory points, and that was black, so he gets 1, 2, 3 victory points. Then from the pieces that were removed, the species that were removed, for each species they only get to put 1 of their pieces back, and the other one goes back into their gene pool. Now, most times when a species is removed from a tile, it gets put back in the box. It's out of the game. But during the glaciation, when species are removed, they actually do go back into the pool. The gene, it's called the gene pool of that player. And there was only 1 species on there, 1 animal type on there, so he gets the 1 back. Okay, the next action you do from left to right is Speciation. So what happens here, starting with the leftmost player, which is yellow, he put 1 on the seed. You can find any element on the earth, and then you get to put species in tiles adjacent to that element. So since yellow is there, he may want to put some species over in here, or he may want to do it here. It just depends. So let's just, for example, well, let's just choose this one. He'll only get to put in 2 tiles because there's only 2 tiles adjacent. But the number you get to put is specified here. So he say he chooses, he selected seed, so he chooses this seed. So next to that is a jungle. Well, for jungle you get to put 3 species in there. So he gets to put 3 of his species in there. And then another one adjacent to it is Tundra. Well, for Tundra you only get to put 1. So he puts 1 in there. But now he has dominance here, for one thing, because he's the only species there. But his total would be 1, 2, because there's 1 seed, and then that's it because he doesn't have meat. But that still makes him dominant in there, so you'd put a cone. Then you remove his action pawn token. The next, it's the Amphibians, and he chose grass. So let's just say, where should he go? We'll just say he chooses this one, because then he gets to put on 3. So in Savannah, if you look for Savannah, you get 3, so he gets to put 3 there. And then for forest, if we look for forest, he gets 3 there. And then last was Tundra, and we know he just gets to put 1 in a Tundra. And then we know he has dominance here because he's got water, 3 waters, that's a total of 3, and he's the only one in there, so he gets to put a dominance token in there. And then we could check dominance here. The Amphibians just have 1 grass, so that's 1, and they got 3 water, so that's a total of 4. And the reptiles have 2 suns on their mat, so that's a total of 2, plus a meat, that's 3, and a water, so that's 4. And if there's a tie, then actually nobody has dominance, so this gets removed. But now we've done the speciation. If the insects were playing, which I'm not playing with the insects, but they would get to put 1 species on 1 tile on anywhere on the earth there. Okay, so next is the Wanderlust action. So black is the leftmost, you go in leftmost player, or leftmost order of the spaces there. So he gets to choose one of these face-up tiles and put it next to any other, adjacent to any other set of tiles there. So let's just say he chooses desert. You know, he's a reptile, he likes the desert. And he's going to place it here. Then he may, if he wants, choose one of these elements that are in here in the Wanderlust section and place that on the corner of his newly placed tile. And of course this one is already on this corner, and this one's on this corner, and this one's on this corner. So we'll just say he puts this. That's what I don't like about this map. It just gets knocked all over the place. It's hard to keep it all when these things on the corners. Okay, but I got the meat placed on the corner of the newly placed tile there. Then he gains victory points depending on the number of adjacent tiles, which there's 3 adjacent to his newly placed tile. So 3, he gets a total of 6 points. And that was black that did this action. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. And then finally, in food chain order, any animal player that has species next to the newly placed tile, they can move all, some, or none to the new tile. So yellow, since he's the, well, actually reptiles would be first, but they don't have any next to that tile. So then birds. So yeah, yellow, you know, he says he's going to move one over there, and then he'll actually have dominance there because he's the only one there, and he does have seed, has matching element. So that gives him dominance. Then the amphibians, they don't have any next to that tile, so they can't move any of their species over there. So that ends the Wanderlust for the reptiles' turn, but now the amphibians, they get to do the same thing. So they get to choose a tile. I'll just say they take the jungle, and they're going to place it here. And then they get to choose one of these, and they'll place it here. And they place that only adjacent to 2 tiles, so they get 3 points. And then in food chain order, players could decide if they want to move. So reptiles first, but he doesn't want to move. He's only got 1. The birds don't have any adjacent, but the amphibians say, yeah, they'll move 1 over there. And of course that gives them dominance on that tile. Okay, next is migration. And the birds chose that. And so you remove your pawn, and the number shown there, which is 7 for the birds, is the number of species you can move from one tile to an adjacent tile. Now, they don't have to be from the same tile, so for instance, the birds could move, you know, 2 from here to there, 1 from here to there, but he can move a total of 7 different species from one tile to an adjacent tile. Now actually the birds can move up to 2 tiles away. Everyone else can just move 1 tile away, but the birds can move up to 2 tiles. So we will just say, you know, he wants to move 1 there, and really I think this early in the game he doesn't have 7 he really wants to move, so he's just going to do that. So then we come to the reptiles. They can move 6. So we'll look and see if there's anywhere he wants to move any. and he thinks he's going to move this one to this savanna here, and that's it. So next is the competition action. If the arachnids were playing, they always get one free and they get to go first there, but they're not. So the amphibians put one here. So they are on the sea, jungle, and tundra. You're always, if you're on one of these spaces, you're adjacent to 3 different tile types. So you get to choose each of those tile types, and if you have a species there and another animal type has a species there, you get to remove one of their species. So on the sea, we don't really have any competition to do there. On the jungle, well, there's nobody else in this jungle and nobody else in this jungle, so that didn't really work out. And on the tundra, again, there's nobody, so there's not really any competition to be done, no species to be removed. But for instance, if black had one species there in the jungle, because I took that action, I would get to remove one of his species there, and it goes back in the box. It's out of the game. But in this instance, this was just kind of a wasted action because it didn't end up where we had anything to compete there. Okay, and the final action type is Domination. So starting with the action pawn on the left, which is the Reptiles, they get to choose one tile on the board that they want to score for Domination. And it has to be a tile that has not yet been scored. So, and in this case, when you're scoring, it's not who's dominant on the tile, but who has the most species on that tile. So, black would want to look for one where he's got the most species. Now, he doesn't have the most here. He doesn't have the most here. And he doesn't have the most here, but he's tied here and tied here. And ties are broken in food chain order. And black happens to be the reptile. Since the mammals aren't playing, he'll always beat any of the other players in ties for food chain order. So he'll pick one where he wants to score the most points. You can kind of see on here they show the scoring for highest, second highest, and third highest, but it's also here on the board. So black chooses this tile, and they're tied, but since he has he's higher on the food chain order, he scores 5 points. So he gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now yellow does have the second most, so he gets 3. And even though there could be a score for third most, since nobody is there, there's not another player there, nobody scores that. Now that tile can't be chosen again by yellow or blue. Now finally, the dominant player, which is yellow, not who scored the dominance, but who's actually dominant because they have the most matching elements, which is yellow, they get to choose. They must choose one of these dominance cards that's available and carry out its actions. So we'll just say yellow chooses this. Omnivore. Gain 1 new action pawn. So he's going to get an extra pawn, so going forward he'll always have 1 more action than the other players. Now these cards that are chosen are just discarded out of the game. And now I've given yellow his extra action pawn. Okay, well now yellow gets to choose a tile to be scored. It can't be that one, obviously. So, you know, he would probably want to choose one of these, and he gets more points for this, so he chooses this jungle. So he gets 6 points for having the most there. and nobody gets second or third most. And he's dominant there, so now he gets to choose another one of the remaining dominance cards. So he'll choose this one, Symbiotic. Your animal and each animal having fewer elements gain one random element. Well, he's only got 3, and the other 2 players have 4, so they won't gain anything because they don't have fewer, but he gains 1 random element out of the bag. So mixing it up, and I draw a grass, so he gets a grass. Alright. And finally, the amphibians get to choose a tile to score. And they will probably choose Savannah because they've got 3. Black only has 2, and they have dominance there. So they get 7 points. And black gets 4 points. And then amphibians get to choose one of the 3 remaining dominance cards. So I'll choose this one, Nocturnal. Move your animals 1 space forward on the initiative track. So I'm here, so I actually get swapped back with the reptiles. Alright, so that's the end, and now we go to the reset phase. So first you have Extinction, where you remove any endangered species. And an endangered species is if you have a species on a tile where you have no matching elements. And I don't think we have that case anywhere. Black has meat, yellow has seed. Yellow has seed, black has meat. Yellow has seed. Yellow has seed. Yellow has seed. Blue has water and grass. Blue has water and grass. Blue has grass and water. Black has water and meat. Yeah, so anyway, there's no endangered species, so nobody goes extinct off of a tile. Now next would be survival. If a player had the most species on a Tundra card, on a Tundra tile, then they would get this survival card and get to execute it. During the reset phase, gain bonus VP for the number of Tundra tiles you occupy. Well, actually, blue does get that because he's got species on 2 Tundra tiles. So blue does get that card. And so we're in the reset phase. So he gains victory points for the number of Tundra tiles he occupies, which is 2, so he gets 3 victory points. Alright. So finally we go to Reseed, where we'll draw 3 new Domination cards and put them on the board. So there's 1, 2, 3. Okay, then next you slide any action pawns forward 1 on the Glaciation track, so now he'll get to take that action during this next turn. Alright, then you remove any elements in the Regression, Depletion, which there's none, and the Wanderlust area, and those go back in the bag. Then you slide elements in the Wasteland box down to the Depletion. You slide elements in the Abundance down to the Wasteland. Slide elements in the Adaptation down into the Regression box. Then we'll draw 4 random elements from the bag and fill in the Adaptation. Another 4 fill in the Abundance, and another 4 will fill in the Wanderlust, and I'll do that. Okay, so I've filled those in, and those in. Now you'll flip over any face down Wanderlust tiles on the stacks. So you'll have 3 face up tiles. And that's it for the reset phase. And then you begin again with the planning phase. Starting with the leftmost player will place one of his action pawns on one of the action eyeball spaces, and each player will do that, and you go through another round. Well, how does the game end? I'm sure you're wondering. How does it end? Well, if you remember when we did setup, the bottom card in the Domination stack was the Ice Age card. So I've played ahead, and eventually when you're refilling the Domination cards here, one of them will be the Ice Age card. So when you are playing around and you get to the Domination phase, if somebody chooses that Ice Age card, that's going to trigger the final portion of the game. So what I thought I would do is do one more round, kind of without explaining as much, just showing what each player is going to do, and then we'll get to where they choose the Ice Age card and see how final scoring is done. So we're in the planning phase. You can see it's the birds, then the amphibians, and then the reptiles. So I'm going to go ahead and set their planning tokens out, and then we'll see what they did. Alright, so finish the planning phase. Everybody's got their action pawns out. Nobody chose initiative, nobody chose adaptation, so we start with yellow doing the regression. Well, actually in this one doesn't really matter the order, because what happens is all the players for each element here, they'll lose one off of their sheet, but if they've put a pawn here, they can choose one not to lose, or if somebody had put 2 pawns there, they could choose 2 not to lose, and the reptiles get one by default. So we'll just start with yellow. He would lose a water, but he chooses not to lose the water. But he does have to lose a meat, so he'll lose this meat. And the other one he would lose a sun, but he doesn't have a sun. Okay, now we'll go to the reptiles. They would have to lose a water, but the only waters they have are their default ones, which they can't lose, so he's not going to save that. He doesn't have a meat, so he's not worried about losing that, and he does have a sun, but he'll use his pawn there to not lose his sun, so he doesn't have to lose that sun element. So finally we come to the reptiles. They don't care about the sun because that's their default, so they can't lose that. They don't have a meat, so they use their one automatic to save the water, so they won't lose their water element. Alright, so now we can take these off. Okay, next is abundance, and blue took both of these actions, so he gets to take 2 tiles and put them on any corner in the map. So he'll take this grass and put it here, and he'll take this grass and we'll just say he'll put it here. And even though he put those 2 grass elements, that does not change. There's still a tie for dominance here, and black still has dominance here. Okay, so we'll remove these 2 pawns. Next we come to Wasteland. Now nobody chose this, but if somebody did, they would get to remove one of those elements from the Wasteland box. But nobody chose that, so now anywhere one of these 2 elements, meat or grub, are adjacent to a tundra, that gets taken off the map. So this meat, which is adjacent to this tundra, has to come off. Doesn't look like there's anywhere else anything needs to come off. I just noticed there's a yellow dominance marker here, but yellow doesn't have a piece there, so I'm going to remove that. Alright, and next we come to depletion. And since the reptiles chose this, they get to choose one element type in here, which there's only meat. And they can remove one matching element from anywhere on the map. We've only got one meat element on the map, so I guess he will remove that one. Okay, so that comes off. Next we have Glaciation, so the reptiles choose a Tundra tile, and they get to place that somewhere that's adjacent to another Tundra tile, hopefully where it will score them the most points. So I guess if they place it here, they'll be next to 3 other Tundra tiles, which will give them 6 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then that comes off, and there's no other ones there. Alright, next we come to Speciation. Well, the reptiles had chosen meat element, but now there's no more meat elements on the board, so that was kind of a bonehead move of them. So their pawn is worthless. So next is the birds chose sun element. So now they get to choose a sun element anywhere on the board, and then put species on adjacent tiles. So they'll choose this one. So for savanna, they get to put 3 species there. Well, yellow kind of realizes he was a fool, because he's got no more species left in his gene pool. So both of his actions here are just pointless, because he doesn't have any species left to put on the board. He only has a few on the board, actually. Most of his have been eliminated for certain reasons. So anyway, both of his actions in the speciation were pointless. So again, another foolish thing on my part, but I was just trying to go through real quick and pick some actions to show what they do. And so finally, the amphibians chose grass. So he actually does have some he can put out. So we'll see. He gets to choose one grass element and put species there. So he'll choose this one. So on wetlands, he gets to put 4 elements, or species. So he'll put 4 in there. And then in sea, he also gets to put 4. Okay, that's it for that action. So now we go to the Wanderlust. Yellow, the birds took that action, so they get to choose a tile here and place it somewhere on the board. So he'll choose this savanna tile and place it here. And then he also gets to choose one of these elements and put it on that tile. So he'll put it on this corner. And since that is adjacent to 3 tiles, he gets to score 6 points. Now he's already gone over 100, so you've got 1 cube up here to show he's over 100, and then his other scoring cube is down here, so he gets 6 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then in food chain order, species can move to that new tile. So reptiles first, and they say, yeah, I'm going to move. Well, they could, yeah, they say yes, I'm going to move 3 guys there. And the birds decide that they'll move 2 there from adjacent tiles. And blue says, well, I could get 3rd place, so I'll move I'll move one from here. Alright, so that's the end of the Wanderlust action. Now we go to the Migration, which Black chose, so he can move up to 7 species to adjacent tiles. So he'll move maybe 2 here and 1 here, and I think that's all he's going to do. So his thing comes off. So next we go to the competition, and the birds chose that, so they have jungle, wetland, and tundra. So it doesn't look like there's a jungle space on the board that's not already been converted to tundra. So let's find a wetland space where he can eliminate, where he has, and he can eliminate somebody. It won't really do him much good here. Probably not much good here, but he does have a species here, so he can eliminate one of blue species, and that's out of the game. And then he doesn't have any species on a tundra space, so that one doesn't help him, so he's done there. But now he did it again on savanna, mountain, and tundra. So on mountain he does have species here, so he'll eliminate again one of blues. And on savanna he can do that here, so he's going to eliminate one of black since he's got a species there. And again, he doesn't have anybody on tundra. So let me put these in the players' bags out of the game. Okay, so his pawn comes off. And finally, the reptiles did mountain, sea, and tundra. So reptiles do have one here, and they don't like that yellow just eliminated them, so they're going to eliminate one of theirs, and plus yellow's way far ahead. And then in C, there's only one C space where where the reptiles have, so they'll take one of blue's off of there. And that's all they can do. Well, tundra, no, they don't share a tundra space with anybody, so. Okay. So that's the end of the competition. So now we come to domination. Yellow is first, so they're going to choose one to score, someplace where they have the most. And it looks like they'll probably get the most points off of the wetland up here, so they're going to choose this one. Now, you can see, actually, if there was another reset phase, they would be extinct here, but we haven't got to that, so they still have a species there, so they're going to score 8 points. But even though this dominant marker is here, they don't have any domination there because there's no element. They don't match any elements, so they don't get to choose a domination card. Okay, next is blue, so he gets to choose one to score. Well, he'll probably do the best here. He has more species on this wetland here, so he'll get 8 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But yellow does have one here, so they get the second most, so they get 4. And blue has dominance here. So they get to choose a dominance card. And I'll just go ahead, because yellow's way far ahead, the other guys aren't going to win anyway. So just show how the game ends, he's going to go ahead and choose the Ice Age card. So it says, each animal scores bonus VPs based on the total number of tiles it currently dominates. This is the last turn. So that's what lets you know this is the last turn. Okay, so since this card says each animal scores bonus VPs based on the total number of tiles it currently dominates, I went ahead and updated dominance so we would know exactly how many people have dominance. So Blue dominates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles, so that gives him 21 points. Yellow doesn't dominate any tiles, and black dominates 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he gets 15 points. Okay, so that's it for the Ice Age card. Now we go ahead and finish domination actions. So next is black, so he'll choose one. So he'll choose this C because that gives him 9 points. So all of these have looped around over 100 now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 puts him at 119. And he dominates that, so he gets to choose a card. There's not really any good ones left. He'll choose this one. Select any one element from the draw bag and place it on Earth. So he's going to choose a sun and put it here. But that doesn't really change dominance. Blue will still have dominance there. So now we come back. Blue gets to choose another one to score. Now he can't choose this one. I like to leave the pawns on here where the people scored, so I know they can't choose that one again. So Blue's going to choose this one where he'll get 5 points. And he is dominant there, so he gets to pick. There's only 2 left, so he'll just choose this one. Your animal and each animal above yours in the food chain gain 1 new action pawn. Well, there's no point in even doing that because it's the last turn, so they won't be used. So I'm just going to discard that. And finally, he gets to choose one more. Alright, so he'll choose this one. He's got 5 and black only has 4. They're tied for dominance, so nobody's really dominant, but that will give him 7 points. So now it's getting pretty close. Since nobody's dominant there's no dominance card chosen. And now we're done with the domination actions. So now as part of the end game, since the Ice Age card has triggered the end game, we still do part of the reset phase. We do the extinction and the survival. So extinction anywhere, somebody's an endangered species where they have species that they don't match the elements. Like here, yellow doesn't have any matching elements, so he loses this species. Go ahead and take these that I put on here to mark. Let me take those off. Okay, I don't think we've got any more extinctions. Yeah, yellow doesn't have a sun, so they're extinct here. Anywhere else? Let me see. I think everywhere else people have. Well, yellow doesn't have a grass, so they're extinct here also. Well, yellow's getting extinct everywhere. Okay, I think that's good for extinction. So now we do survival. So again, the survival card goes to the player with the most species occupying tundra tiles. That appear to be the amphibians. They occupy 1, 2, 3 tundra tiles, and the only other one that occupies tundra tiles is the reptiles, and they just do 1. So they get bonus points for the number of tiles they occupy. So they occupy 3, so that gives them 6 points. Alright, so that's survival. Then you do one final scoring, but first you remove all domination markers as they won't matter. Okay, then you score each tile that has species on it one more time. So again, blue has the most here, so they'll get 8, and yellow will get 4. Blue has the most here, so they will get 5. Blue has the most here, so they'll get 1. Blue has the most here, so they'll get 1. Blue has the most here, so they'll get 3, and black will get 2. Alright, then, okay, here it's a tie, and that's broken in food chain order, so black will get this, they'll get 4, blue will get 2. Alright, black will get 1 for that, blue will get 1 for that. Here, again, broken in food chain order, so in this case, black will get 7, yellow will get 4, and blue will get 2. Similarly here, black will get 5, yellow will get 3, and blue will get 2. Here, blue has the most, so they'll get 7, and black will get 4. Okay, here, black has the most, he'll get 9, and blue will get 5. And finally here, black has the most, they'll get 8, and blue will get 4. So that's final scoring. Ends up with blue with a score of 174, black with 159, and yellow, who I thought was going to win, ends up with 39. So I actually liked this game. So I don't remember why we didn't finish it the first time we played it, but I enjoyed going through it this time and think it would be really fun to play it again with some other people. So whenever COVID's over and we get back to playing, I think I'll definitely recommend playing this with the fellas I play with. I will say, I've heard a lot of people, or haven't heard, but I know there's been some complaints about the components, you know, using cubes and cones and whatnot. And it would be kind of neat if these cubes were, you know, little amphibians and little birds, and maybe the dominance markers was a large amphibian or, you know, a large bird or whatever. That'd be kind of neat. And I wish there were maybe slots so that, you know, a 2-layer board or something so that the tiles wouldn't shift around. That would be cool. But with GMT doing this game, if they still even make it, I don't know, but if they still do, I know something like that will never happen. But anyway, I did enjoy it. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something. Thanks.